This is Twit. So, Devindra, why does Facebook want to start a cryptocurrency?
I mean, it's a big question. I will warn you guys up front. I was off this entire week, so I was just trying to stay away.
I don't even
from a lot
know.
of tech news.
I don't even know any.
But you knew about the light bulb.
Yeah,
I knew about
so
the light
much
bulb.
for
Well, that's
that.
just Twitter. That's just fun. That's just culture. But the Facebook cryptocurrency, you know.
Well, Doug,
I
you
think
could
there's a
say
lot-
this off the top of your head because we don't really know anything. It's not going to happen
don't
until
know.
next year.
But I think you can speculate that, you know, having a cryptocurrency is smart for them because they won't have to pay any transaction fees to, you know, to credit card companies or to banks or anything, which I think most companies want. They want kind of the freedom to handle payments like that. And also Facebook is so big, you know, we've said this many times on this show. It's bigger than most countries, you know, in terms of the amount of users. So it kind of makes sense for them to have their own specific currency.
Actually,
it's surprising it took this long.
Facebook's bigger than any country.
Yeah.
If you take the 2.5 billion people use Facebook, that's huge.
It's huge.
And of course, Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp would clearly. I mean, it strikes me Facebook wants to be WeChat for the rest of the world, right? Because WeChat runs commerce in China. But on the other hand, that Facebook association sticks in some people's craw. Kate,
It's almost like we shouldn't trust anything they say.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Clearly. Kate, which side do you come? This is a good thing, yeah? Or is it an evil plan?
I mean, I think there's certainly good that can come of it. And I think for whatever good that can come of it, like the banking the unbanked and you know, sort of getting rid of these international transaction fees and the kinds of things that prohibit people from being able to support each other financially across global currencies, that it makes a lot of sense. But I do think that it's wise of anyone to be suspicious of how it's going to play out with Facebook's reputation for data breaches and overreaches.
Not to mention, if you're a bank, this could be terrifying. A threat to national sovereignty, too, because, in fact, India has already banned, you can go to jail for 10 years in India for using any cryptocurrency because it threatens the government, right? One of the government's main functions is to create and support a currency.
I mean, I think one of the important things here is that these coins are going to be backed by real assets. So it's not just Bitcoin that can, you know, that has a sort of a cryptographic value, ascribed to it, and that's it. This will have money apparently all over the world to back it.
They said dollars, euros, yen, and marks. I can't remember what the fourth one was.
Yeah,
there are no marks.
And that's
pounds. That's the last one. Pounds.
Yeah, we're a bit volatile right now. Thank you, Brexit.
But I think that's one of the flaws with Bitcoin for sure is you don't know. It's now $10,000 again. You don't know what it's going to be worth. Hence, somebody could spend millions of dollars for a pizza, you know, not knowing what that Bitcoin is worth. So that's one thing that I think Facebook wants it. They're not pegging it to the dollar, but they want it to be stable.
Yeah, exactly. They want it to be stable. And I think the other thing to be, you know, I think we have to be very mindful of is the fact that, number one, Facebook has a massive trust issue in the first instance anyway. A lot of people are very skeptical of Facebook because of its reach. Also, we haven't really had a massively successful use of crypto in the kind of mainstream world. You know, we've seen companies like Dell accept it for payments for laptops and things. We've seen stores accept it, but we've also seen plenty of stores drop support of it because the volatility is too great.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think we have a massively successful example to say this is the reason why this can be a success. And I think that paired with the lack of trust that Facebook inherently has right now makes me very skeptical whether this can take off. And that's only magnified by the fact that no banks are involved in this. So I think they're going to have a really tough time.
One of the other there's really two problems with Bitcoin. One is the volatility. The other is just due to the algorithm for the blockchain, transactions can take a really long time. And if you're in a store to buy a pair of pants, you can't wait half an hour, 2 hours for that transaction to go through. It has to go through much faster. Facebook says that they're going to be able to process tens of thousands of transactions a second, but that's not a huge number compared to the potential if this becomes used by billions of customers worldwide.
Yeah. It is interesting that they're trying to keep it open, at least in some respect. Knowing Facebook, like, it seems like their first approach to everything, like when they got into VR, Oculus was this closed off thing. It took a while for them to even like cooperate with Steam VR and everything. So the openness from the get-go is interesting to me. I just wonder, is it like open in name only because Facebook is probably the most, powerful force among that open source organization there?
Kate, I read too much science fiction, so maybe you can get me down to earth. But if you read a lot of science fiction, and a lot of it talks about corporate governance in the future, there won't be countries, there'll be corporations. And you're looking in our current affairs for the seeds of that future. This, to me, could be in 20, 30, 40 years, we might look back and say this was a watershed moment when Silicon Valley decided, screw dollars, we're going to use our own currency.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there are sort of shades of that going on, and I think there's enough going on that Facebook and its partners tried to put into place to alleviate some of those doubts and concerns. Right. Certainly this consortium of 28 or whatever partners do look like the kind of partners that you would want to have involved in this process, as you mentioned, Kiva and other NGOs that sort of provide this kind of stabilizing humanistic force to the whole thing. But I do think that the association with Facebook is just going to be really hard to overcome, that there's no sense that anybody's going to have that this is not a play to monetize the back end of messaging and the content that Facebook is increasingly pushing to the dark corners of its platform, where people are going to be clustered in groups and that sort of thing is going to need some sort of reach, some sort of monetization. This seems like a way to get around having monetization through the news feed, advertising in the news feed, and it does seem like they're sort of thinking 2 steps ahead to get to where they're diversified and well set up for continued leadership and sprawl.
This is completely weirdly paranoid of me, but I can just imagine. I thought 2 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg, especially with his 50-state tour, he was going to run for president. I thought, and I think this is kind of I could see the Silicon Valley billionaires thinking, and well, not just Silicon Valley, Jeff Bezos thinking, this democracy thing, this is a mess. We know we're smart. We can figure this out. Just let us do it. I
think it more efficient.
Yeah, it'd be more efficient. Just let us handle it. And then obviously Zuck realized after he went to Congress and people thought he was a robot, okay, maybe I'm not going to make it. I couldn't become president. But why would I want to take a step down? I don't need to be president. I'm CEO. All I need is a currency. I mean, seriously, this is, what if global coin, what if Libra became I could see how it would. If there's no VIG going to the banks, it became a dominant form of payment. It's how you do internet. We use PayPal. We have international hosts. We have to use. It's easier for us to use PayPal to pay them.
The PayPal support is interesting on this too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's enough revenue to go around. I'm sure they'll figure out a way to get something out of it. But to me, this doesn't strike me, from at least certainly from Facebook's point of view, as either a economic play, like we're going to make a lot of money on this, although they might have a hand in every transaction going forward. That's Amazon's plan, right? And I don't think this is a privacy thing. I think that's missing the whole point of this. If you say, oh, Facebook's just doing this so they can get more information about all our transactions, I think this is a power play. I think this is Facebook saying, who needs a government? Who needs banks? Am I just being paranoid, Devindra?
No, I think that's probably a good way to look at it. To me, it's a little less scary than something like the Portal that they announced their video chat system.
And I should point out, I have two of them, because
come on, Leo.
I thought I need one to talk to the other one.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, which is good tech, but probably came at the wrong time for them. Whereas this, like, yeah, it does seem like a power play. It does seem like, how can we just be a global superpower? What if we didn't need banks? What if we could just manage our own ecosystem? You know, it's preparing us for the world of the future where we're all living in VR and just buying stuff digitally. It all makes sense. Yeah.
And I guess I'm not the only one who's paranoid, because the French government has already said we're investigating, and Facebook is going to have to go to Congress next month to explain yourself, Facebook, because there's some, I think, reasonable concern in government about, well, what is Facebook up to? So maybe I'm not completely paranoid. Although lately getting grilled by Congress is just kind of it's table stakes for anybody who wants to play this game.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting on that the Congress investigation articles that I've been reading, that it's it's a sort of a bipartisan suspicion of this plan,
right?
And you can easily see what sort of stakes that each side is thinking about. One side's thinking about the sort of social and data privacy implications, right, and one side is thinking about banks,
right?
Right, stepping in and taking over banks. So it is interesting that it is a bipartisan concern that's being expressed here.
If you think about banks, not just central banks, national banks, but just commercial banks, they really are an important constituency to Congress, I would imagine. They spend a lot of money on Congress. Congress has a certain sense of responsibility to banks, and I'm sure that's what some of this is. And honestly, so I'm so torn about this, because as you probably gathered, I'm not a fan of Facebook. But at the same time, anything that disintermediates, especially banks, I think that's a good thing. So I don't know where to come down on this one.
Well, it's so easy to sort of fast forward a few years and imagine that, the kind of investigation that's been going on over the last couple of years about the Russian involvement in the 2016 presidential election and the campaigns. It's so easy to imagine a couple of years down the road, this whole obfuscation that happens as a result of this all happening through a Swiss bank, and with there's some data trail, of course.
Imagine that.
What data trail?
Instead of subpoenaing Deutsche Bank, who are you going to subpoena if it's a Libra coin?
Yeah,
that is a real concern. This would be a money launderer's dream.
Can I just throw one other massive bit of skepticism in here? And
yes,
I feel like a massive naysayer on all this.
No, that's good.
Have we really examined why Facebook is doing this, right? Because Facebook gets about 99% of all its revenue from advertising. And we know how that side of its business model works. But what is its real motivation here? Like, I've heard talk about that the more people who have better access to money and banking and revenue in general mean they may be more likely to want to spend on advertising, and therefore that's good for Facebook. And I get that if that's the reason. But I maybe it's just my inherent distrust for most of what Facebook does that makes me just want to question, why exactly is it doing this, and why is Facebook the right company to do this and to pull this off? What has it been telling other partners about why it's the right one to spearhead all this? Amidst all this stuff that's going on with Facebook, why now and why Facebook? I don't have a good answer for that. It's a question I sort of pose to everyone else. I find myself to be maybe more skeptical than some other people I've heard talking about this. I'm not sure why that is.
No, it's the same thing as when Facebook said, let's do internet.org. We want to, this is a wonderful thing. We're going to give the internet to the next billion people who don't have access to the internet. And then it turns out for them, the internet means Facebook. And India, very interestingly, said, this is just another form of colonialism. We have plenty of experience with that. No, thank you.
Yeah. Yep. And if you look at something that's happening with WhatsApp, which Facebook owns, WhatsApp wants to be more of a business to consumer operation. It wants to have a business model around, well, this is the place you can go for real-time chat between a subscriber and the company being subscribed to. It wouldn't take a giant leap of imagination to think that it could be built into something like that, where actually you can do your transactions on this platform. You can send and receive money on this platform. And maybe there would be an incentive to Facebook for you to do that. Plus, it wouldn't necessarily cost Facebook anything to do that, on an individual transaction basis. And I wonder if that's part of the long-term ambition here.
Yeah, it's a lot of speculation, but I feel what you're saying, Leo, that it seems it's hard not to feel like there's a conspiracy here. And I think it's not just Facebook, right? They have a ton of partners, and it feels like them working together with all these other technology companies and a lot of VC firms, Andreessen Horowitz, Union Square Ventures. I'm just looking at the list here.
Okay, but VC firms, they're just covering their bets. If anybody, VC firm says, we'll give you $10 million. It's pocket change, and we just want to make sure if that's the next big thing that we're here. I don't think that's a vote of confidence. It's just hedging our bets.
No, I haven't really seen them jump into a lot of digital currencies, even though it's like the big hot thing now.
Right.
It just seems like this is a really interesting group of people, right? So,
if Facebook weren't involved,
yep,
we wouldn't be talking about it. It would just be another coin.
Yeah, this seems like the beginning of like the ultimate digital currency, basically. And they have these VC firms. They have Stripe, which is, a company that's handling credit card transactions for a lot of, online companies and things like that. And PayPal, which we mentioned before, which is still big, even though it seems like an old school company. They're still huge. They have Venmo. Like there's a lot of really interesting partnership here that I think it's more interesting than just Facebook doing this on their own, basically.
Well, I think one of the things that makes it interesting is not only that the Facebook's name is part of this collective, but that Facebook has been kind of the name that we've associated with this idea for the last few weeks as the rumors have been flying around. And that also they're building the Calibra wallet that's going to be, at least initially, the way that you sort of manage the money and push things around. So it will supposedly that there will be third parties that will build wallets other than Calibra, but I think that's an interesting function at the beginning too. And I still come back to, for me, I just see Facebook looking into their own future and seeing that they're going to need to fundamentally turn their business model kind of inside out in order to deal with all of the complaints about content moderation and all the complaints that they're getting about regulation and data privacy. Their content that's been pushed to the news feed is going to need to be pulled back into the groups and private messaging. And so they need to think in a completely different way about how they monetize that and how they make that a successful model going forward. And to me, this just feels like one piece of that equation.
It might boil down to, and Nate, you ask an interesting question, but I think a fairly impenetrable question. What is their intent? No, I mean, I don't know if you can look into Facebook's soul and see what its intent is for anything.
Well,
but
they've already helped
Facebook
us for democracy.
has a soul?
Facebook has no soul. That's the point. It's got the dark, soulless eyes of a man-eating shark. But no, in all seriousness, it kind of comes down to how you feel about Facebook. If you think Facebook is... if you true to what Mark says all the time, which is it's all about connection, man, this would be just one another way to do that, right? And disintermediating banks and governments, that couldn't be bad. But maybe it's also about getting a piece of every financial transaction in the future. And the other question is, if not Facebook, who? If Google did this, would we be having the same conversation? You bet. And if not Facebook, China? I mean, I'm sure that there are other people trying to do this. So maybe Facebook is the best possible choice to do this. I don't know.
Fundamentally, I don't know how different it is for Facebook to be doing this from China doing this. In some ways, I mean, there's still a lot of surveillance that kind of goes into the equation. And, the amount of trust on the table is still just as much in question.
I don't know. If it were a choice between China and Facebook, now you got me. I think I'd choose Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this is the future of Facebook, right? I mean, it's still a really young company, and in 50 years' time, if Facebook's still around, and somebody came back from the future and said Facebook is the global standard for international borderless payments, I could say, and that's it. like a massive one world bank, I could believe it. I mean, you look at a company like Nokia, which is my favorite example. It used to make toilet paper, and then decades later, tires and bits of rubber and stuff. Like, if someone came back from 2003 and said to this person buying Nokia toilet paper that in the future it was going to make most of the world's smartphones, you'd be like, how? Not sure. Maybe Facebook can do that. I don't know, but I'm skeptical for now.
I just think it's a fascinating subject, and it feels to me like a watershed moment, and it might end up not being, but it feels like this could be a moment you'd look back in time and say, yeah, that's when Facebook started to take over. Oh God,
that's when.
Oh God.